All right, good morning. Thank you for your patience. Lee Merritt, Leemerritt, one of the attorneys for the family. You're going to hear shortly from the Prime Minister of St. Lucia's, Alain Chastanet. And after that, you will hear from the other attorneys for the family, myself, Attorney Ben Crump, Attorney Darrell Washington, and then you'll hear from Ms. Botham Jean, the mother for Mr. Botham Jean, and she'll be accompanied by their family, but they won't be making any statements. Afterwards, the attorneys will come forward, make a brief statement, and answer some questions, okay? With that said, without any further delay, you'll hear from the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Allen is A-L-L-E-N. Chastanet is C-H-A-S-T-A-N-E-T, and I'm the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. I would like to have come to Dallas under different circumstances, but I'm here today to give my solidarity with Allison, who is a lady that I've known for many, many, many years. She's been a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Education, and has been an outstanding citizen of St. Lucia. And I know a lot of people say that about their children, but Allison did an incredible job of raising her son. And we all in St. Lucia are extremely proud of Botham and what he represented and how he represented St. Lucia. I have to say that in St. Lucia, there are really two very, very strong emotions. One clearly of great sadness. Sadness that a young man lost his life at such a young age. Sadness knowing how close Allison and their family were to Botham. The other emotion is one of anger. To think that a young man would be in his apartment, and the possibility could be that somebody could come to his door and he ends up being dead. I know for the family, there are also mixed emotions. One, wanting to try to heal and to be emotional about the loss of their son, but then also being forced into this situation of having to want justice. And I don't think any of us would truly understand the conflict of those emotions. Because can you ever think that you are praying for your son as much as you should, but at the same time having to fight to see his justice? And I'm here to say that we're going to support the family. I also want to thank the Mayor, Mike Rollins, for reaching out to me and the empathy that he showed. And I was very encouraged by the words of the DA at the press conference this morning. And certainly my ambassador, who is here, will be working behind the scenes to give the family as much support as we possibly can. And really hoping that the justice system takes the right course and that Botham's name is redeemed. So thank you.
You're not going to hear from Botham's mom, Ms. Allison. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to save her for last. I misstated the order. We are encouraged by the charges going forward on behalf of the family. However, we want to maintain our focus on the long haul. It is very difficult anywhere in the United States to see an officer convicted. And we believe that a conviction is proper here. We just don't know enough about the facts. And the DA mentioned that we left her office not satisfied yesterday. She said she wasn't sure why. We weren't satisfied for a number of reasons. Number one, when we left the office, it was 3 days after Botham had been killed, and his killer, who was known to the DA at the time, was not in handcuffs. Whether that was the responsibility of the DA's office or the Rangers or the Dallas Police Department, it mattered not to this family. What mattered was that person was able to leave Botham's home, return to her home, and not face any consequence for 3 days after he was killed. And that is extremely problematic for this family. That shows an extreme deference. We were encouraged to see the mayor here and other representatives from the city, but we are of the position that the city has to share not only in our cries for justice, but they have to take responsibility for their share and accountability as well. When Amber, or Officer Geiger, entered this apartment, she entered in her uniform. She was operating under the color of state authority. She used her service pistol to kill Botham Jean. She used her training, and we would expect our law enforcement officers in the city of Dallas to be able to diffuse a situation, to gather facts, really simple facts, starting with the fact that she was on the wrong floor, that she came to the wrong door, that she was standing on a big red carpet, or any number of facts that should have indicated to her that she was not at her residence. If the prevailing narrative is true, and again, it's clouded in a shroud of mystery, but if the prevailing narrative is true and that she entered the wrong home and found a stranger there, why was she so quick to rely on deadly force is a great mystery to us. So there's so much more information that we demand come forward, and so many more people held accountable. In addition to Amber, we want to know what went wrong in her training, what went wrong in her before she clocked out that had her so disoriented, if that is in fact the case, that she couldn't make her home from another person's home. And so the city has repeated this call that they want to be as transparent as possible. I don't know that they can. They've said transparency was a priority to them for a number of times, but this is this family's second trip to this office, and they still leave with no more transparency or no more clarity about what happened at that door. We're not rushing them to release that information. We want them to gather as much information as they can in order to present to the grand jury, but we really feel like the word transparency ought to be dropped from their lexicon as they move forward with their investigation, because the promise of transparency to this family has been a blank check. Thank you.
It's very clear to us that the very foundation of the justice system in America required for the killer of Botham Jean to be arrested. Think about it. What terrible precedents would this have set had she not been arrested? People could just say, I went to the wrong apartment, I thought it was my apartment, and I killed the innocent person. Because that would be the precedence had an arrest not been made in this case. And this is a shocking scenario to everybody. The way Botham was killed was not just a shock to the family, but it was astonishing to most sensible people, not just in America, but around the world, because he was from the island nation of St. Lucia. So this is an international incident, not just a local incident. When people put it in context and they are watching, is the American justice system going to treat Botham Jean and his family like they would treat the officer's family had this situation been reversed? And that's what is the crux of the matter here. Black people in America have been killed by police in some of the most unbelievable manners. You know, driving while black in our cars. Black people have been killed walking while black in our neighborhoods. And now here we are being killed living while black when we're in our apartments. At some point we have to say that we have an issue here, and we have to have the legacy of Botham be that we don't want to keep losing our children to the people who are supposed to protect and serve us. That's what this is about, trying to have his legacy mean more than just he has been taken away from us in an unbelievable circumstance, but what is going to be done about it injustice in this case, and how is American society going to learn from this? How does this become a teachable moment for all of America? And in conclusion, as I look at his little brother, Brant, I think about other young people of color when they have interactions with law enforcement authorities. We want them to not accelerate the confrontation. We want them to de-escalate the confrontation. So this police officer, who I understand was trained, supervised, prepared, when she had this confrontation with Botham, why did she use deadly force? It makes no sense. It didn't make sense when they first got the news, and it doesn't make sense today. We expect more from the people who we give the right to use deadly force. Police officers have the right to use deadly force. If anybody should be able to discern a situation, it should be the police. You'll hear from Attorney Darrell Washington before you hear from Miss Allison Jones.
Thank you, man. You know, we were just here roughly a week ago, and we were talking about Jordan Edwards, and we were talking about the conviction of Raw Oliver. And I talked to his parents, and one of the things I said is maybe we can finally get some rest. Maybe this is not going to happen anymore. And a few days later, we saw a truck ram into Fox 4 news station. And we saw a white guy out of control get out of his truck, reach into his pocket, and pull out a cell phone. And the officers didn't use deadly force. No deadly force was used. And I said, you know what? Maybe Jordan's death is not in vain. Maybe officers are now going to take one extra second before they decide to use deadly force. And now we're dealing with this situation here a week later. Perfect young man, just like Jordan Edwards was. All the stories that we heard about this young man, they're all the truth. He had a future before him, but we have one issue. And the city of Dallas needs to realize this, is that we have a training issue when it comes for officers dealing with unarmed African Americans. For some reason, there is a tendency to pull that trigger very fast and to answer questions later. There is no doubt in our minds that this officer should have been arrested immediately. What was the transparency that they talk about? The chief of police said, well, we want to bring the Texas Rangers in here to have transparency. Transparency to who? You arrested the officer, so you were being transparent to the public. Was the transparency that they were talking about transparent to the Dallas Police Union or the police officers to make it seem that we're not going to prosecute police officers? So we know that this officer was in full uniform. We know that this officer, we have heard a number of statements that this officer felt that her apartment was being burglarized. And we know that there's a very thin line between off-duty and on-duty. And if this officer felt that her apartment was being burglarized, that officer was then operating on duty. So this is not a situation that we're dealing with an off-duty police officer. It's our belief that this officer was on duty. And it's ironic here in Dallas, we know that officers are given 72 hours before they have to give a statement. So it's ironic that this officer was arrested about 72 hours after the death. So this shouldn't be happening, and the family should not be here talking about this. You know, the district attorney, Faye Johnson, said something that resonated with all of us for a very long time. She said, and I will never forget it, if a wife loses her husband, she is considered to be a widow. If kids lose their parents, they're considered to be orphans. But if a parent loses their kid, there is no definition in Webster that can describe the pain that this family is dealing with. And this is what this family is dealing with. They did not want to be in Dallas, Texas. There's a number of places they would want to be. They would not want to be in Dallas, Texas under these circumstances. So we hope that we can get justice here in Dallas.
Botham was my middle child, and therefore I stand in the middle today to represent Botham. I want to thank the community for standing with me. I want to thank the country of St. Lucia. I want to thank the Caribbean and the world for standing with all of us. Unfortunately, his dad has not come here yet, but what we want, I'm not satisfied that we have all the answers. And the number one answer that I want is, what happened? I have asked too many questions, and I've been told that there are no answers yet. I'm looking forward to all of the powers that be to come up with the answers to make me more satisfied that they are doing what is in the best interest of getting justice for Botham. Thank you very much.
All right, we will field just a few questions and then we're going to get out of here. Fire away.
For Daryl, you just went through the Roy Oliver thing, as you said.
Yes.
You listened to what was up there. You have a pretty good relationship, it seemed, with the district attorney's office. Are you satisfied by the time this exits the grand jury that you're going to have full answers and full disclosure, having worked with him?
Having worked with the district attorney's office in the past, I can say that I feel confident with the team that's here at this district attorney's office that they're going to look into every aspect of this investigation and they're going to do the right thing.
Mayor, everybody talks about clarity and transparency. You all met with the district attorney. They met with the Texas Rangers. Is there any clarity as to what Ms. Jean has simply asked for? What happened?
No. And I believe that's something that the district attorney's office, in terms of transparency and clarity, could offer this family. I don't think it's something that belongs in the public domain necessarily, but we would love to see them be more forthcoming with this family, and we would love to see them be more thorough in their investigation. Because the questions, even the questions that this family asked her directly, they were honestly some pretty common sense questions, and they didn't have answers for even those.
Do you know if there was body cam video since she pulled her weapon? She was still in uniform, to your knowledge?
No, when she clocked out, when she checked out, she left her body cam down at the station, which I understand is standard procedure.
Yesterday we met out here. It was like 7 o'clock, right? This officer was arrested at 6:37. I'm just confused as to how y'all didn't know that there was an arrest warrant if y'all were just with the DA at that time. How did that happen?
Yeah, again, when we talk about transparency, that's not something that the DA was willing to share with this family. Not even the fact that they were seeking an arrest warrant. So. Again, it's in our opinion, a hypocritical cry for transparency when they're not giving us basic information.
You know, if the officer has you been told about?
One more time, sir.
What have you been told about the narrative of what happened? You must have said some kind of setup.
Unfortunately, they have told us nothing about what they believe is the narrative or what they know to be fact. Sir?
Do you know if the officer is taser qualified?
I don't know that.
Lee, I know you mentioned in your press release yesterday the idea of new evidence. Is any of that surface you can talk about beyond what's already in the public record?
Yeah, so again, we encourage the public. This to happen 4 days ago now, and so there's a lot of evidence out there, and unfortunately, there's misinformation floating around that needs to be dealt with, and there's additional evidence that needs to find its way into this investigation. The Rangers have failed to gather some of that evidence that we were able to present to the district attorney's office yesterday, and again, we weren't doing it just for show. We honestly thought because of the availability of this evidence and the relative ease in which we gathered it, that they already had it. They didn't, and that's problematic. And so we don't want to compromise their investigation. We won't go into the details of it, but we are calling for a more thorough investigation and more diligent work.
Lee, do you feel that she wasn't arrested until almost 3 days? Do you feel this officer is getting special treatment?
This officer is absolutely getting special treatment. She's being treated like a police officer in the United States when they commit a crime. And so it's not special in that regards. It's common, but it's something that should not happen. There's no way that she should have left the scene of this incident even under her narrative. Now, the narrative, which is the prevailing narrative, and I haven't heard statements directly from her, that she found herself in the wrong person's apartment and shot them to death, is at least probable cause for manslaughter. And so she shouldn't have left that scene without being in handcuffs that day.
Can you confirm whether there's a report out there that says, okay, she got there, there's this red mat that Miss Allison had bought, so that, I mean, it was a red mat. Nobody has a red mat around there. She still went in somehow.
I'm listening.
That the door was unlocked. She went in. She saw that it was dark. There was a silhouette there. She thought it was an intruder, and she shot. Is that what y'all are understanding to be the case?
I understand that to be the prevailing narrative. I don't know if that's the case or not. All right, you guys, we thank you for your time.
Question for the Prime Minister, please. Just a quick question, sir.
Quick.
Stefanoff. Do the people of your island consider the United States safe?
I mean, unfortunately, the news coming out of the States in recent years has not been very, very good. And certainly with the immigration debate that's taking place in the States, I think it's understandable that a lot of immigrants are fearful of America. But I don't want to really cloud that with this issue. This issue is really about family.
Mr. Crump, does Miss Allison want a murder charge to come out of this?
The family want them to be held. The family wants the killer of their child to be held to the full extent of the law. Thank
Is that
you.
a murder charge, Miss
Thank you.
Allison?